Greetings and salutations, this is Imperator Vespasian bringing you a video on our Steel Legion. Oh, my Steel Legion, this is my Imperial Guard army. The sidekick has his own Imperial Guard army which he's currently building, and funnily enough this is my Steel Legion army and he has more tanks than me and he's doing Cadian, so work that one out. So this is the beginnings of my Steel Legion. Obviously I have no vehicles yet bar the Lehman Russ you can see at the back. This lovely little chap here. This is my only Steel Legion tank so far because I ended up spending money on loads of other stuff and I was going to spend a lot more on Steel Legion because I wanted to get a couple of Bane Blades and stuff, but you will see this as the army progresses. My overall plan is to get a command vehicle for the command squad, one Chimera per squad of infantry, so I want a few more squads of infantry obviously because this is an Imperial Guard army and I've only got two, and I seem to be doing okay on heavy weapons so far, so yeah. Anyway, from Games Workshop you can only get these chaps. These are the only guys you can actually get from Games Workshop. It's the only ones they sell, and you get 10 figures in a pack. You get a rocket launcher team and a guy with a grenade launcher who I have converted into a guy with a plasma gun to fit in more with the aesthetic of what I'm playing, and a flamer. The Steel Legion do have options for different weapons, and given that the sidekicks Imperial Guard are using grenade launchers in all their squads, I wanted to mix it up. So I gave different weapons to these guys, and I'm gonna, when I get more packs, I'll give some of them flamers and things like that. So I'll spread it out a bit. Now, to make all of the Steel Legion, we have command squads, and you can see I'll show you one of the chaps here. Here we go, yeah. See his helmet? He's got a Steel Legion-esque breathing helmet. And there's another one there, and then we've got a weapons team, or 3 or 5 actually, and they've got breathers on. There's only one exception to this, and that's this one, where I used, he's got the forage cap on and a Imperial Guard breather, but he's wearing a gas mask. So that's the only real exception. Can you see the gas mask very well? If I can focus it. Ah, you get the idea. I'll include some pictures and I'll probably do a video on them later. So, right, so the way I did this was I got the standard Imperial Guard box. Then I got Militarum Tempestus Scions, these guys here. And because they have the wrong uniform but the right helmet, this was actually an idea of the guy in Games Workshop. I explained what I was doing and he said, why don't you try this? And it was actually a really good idea and it's worked out really well. So I got the Scions and I turned the Scions into my, you can see he's wearing the Scion gear and he's got a sort of made up shotgun out of a bolter, and he is a Adeptus policeman. Can't remember the name. Adeptus something. Adeptus Abatis. There we go. So I made these guys into the Adeptus Abatis, and I've already done videos on them, so I'm not going to go into detail with that. But all the spare heads I used to make these guys, and this is my overall commanding officer here. He's quite a nice chap. He's got a nice little trench coat. Didn't need any extra modelling for this guy. All I did was a head swap, and he looks really cool. And it fits in with the Steel Legion aesthetic. Obviously, with the ground troops, I had the other infantry, I had to add layers. I had to put coats on them to make them look wintry, so I've put not wintry, I've put the coat on their legs, extending their legs down to make it look more steer, covering the legs to make it look like they're wearing a trench coat. That guy, he's quite a nice little chap I had left over from my Polish army, and so I converted him into a 40k miniature by adding a las rifle and breather, so it worked out quite well. Waste not, want not. Oh, also I put the auto cannon on wheels to fit more in with the aesthetic of the army. So it's mechanised infantry, so it's going to be pulled by a vehicle. So I put it on wheels. I actually made this model first. This is the first conversion I did. So I didn't put the wheels on, and I didn't really feel like taking it apart, and also I wasn't sure how I could make the power cable sort of trail along. If it was on wheels, where would the power cable go? And it would require a little bit of converting, and I quite like the base as it was, so I didn't want to tear it up, so that's how I ended up with that. So yeah, this is a quick overview. Unfortunately, I ran out of heads. You only get a certain amount of heads in the Scions box, so I ended up, when I got to the Commissar, I had run out of spare heads, so I couldn't convert the Commissar, and I couldn't get the breather to fit on his mouth properly. So I think I'm going to, when I get another Scions box, I'm going to do a head swap, but I'm going to try and cut the top of the hat off and put it on a Scions helmet. I'm going to have a go at doing that, but I might wait until I get another Commissar and do a test with that. Because I don't really want to ruin a figure. Lastly, we have these guys, who are the support troops. These are a fleet sport, ground sport, and an astropath, and I'll go into the rules for them later. They're, what are they called? I think they're called adjutants or something. You buy them in a pack of 3. And each one does a different thing, and off the top of my head I can't remember, but the Astropath does something clever. He's also a psyker, so you can use him as an actual psyker in combat, which is funny because in sorry, was it 7th edition? Although he was an Astropath, he couldn't use psychic powers, but in the edition before, which is when the pack first came out, you could. But it's complicated. Hang on, that's the guy there. That's the Astropath there. And what can he do? He's got a telepathic stave, which is pretty good in combat, and he has psychic powers. Let's have a look. He's got Astral Division. He can predict the future. Enemy units within 18 inch may not get a cover bonus. Right, that's his bonus skill. So he stops your enemy from getting a cover save because he can see where they are using his magic powers. Then we've got the fleet guy, who will be in my list somewhere. Yeah, the fleet guy. Fleet interdiction, +1 to allies reserve rolls, -1 to enemy reserve rolls. So when you're bringing in reserves, this navy looking chap, this Captain Keys type character, painted to fit in with some naval personnel that I'm working on. And this them here. He's actually in the Eisenstein crew uniform of the Death Guard. So 10,000 years out of date, but I like the uniform. What he does, he makes it easier for you to get reserves coming on board, and it makes it harder for the enemy to not get reserves on board, because he's got a cruiser in orbit or destroyer in orbit, blowing up enemy ships and preventing them from getting close enough to beam down troops or whatever. Lastly, we have the Master of Ordnance, this guy, and I'll go into what he does. I'll do a separate video on them because there's a lot more to them than that. But overall, this is the armour. I quite like it. I think it looks really cool. It's based on snow, which you can see. Oops, I'll cover his head up. All the figures are based on snow because all my stuff is based on a snow theme. All my wife's stuff is based on snow theme, but she's horrible demons anyway, so who cares? And all of my Sun stuff is, sorry, the sidekick stuff is based on sort of sand and stuff like that, because that's the theme he's going for. And it makes it a lot easier to play games if you all have different bases, because it makes it very much easier aesthetically to see the difference between troops. And that's the theme I was going for. And given these guys are in trench coats, I was originally thinking of doing them based on sand. I have some brilliant types of sand in boxes all over the place. And I have some lovely red sand I was going to use. But he took it off me, so I couldn't use that because he decided to use that for his Imperial Guard. So there we go. And the sidekick's always right, and I'm always wrong. So in case anyone actually cares. So Steel Legion. I go into details on the Steel Legion for you. You should really know who they are. Most people know who they are. They're a standard Imperial Guard regiment, but their big thing is they have additional armour. Because they live on the world of Armageddon, they have way more additional troops, weapons and vehicles available to them. So they have a lot more armour than a normal Imperial Guard regiment would have. A normal Imperial Guard regiment would have a handful of heavy weapons, heavy vehicle choices, I think 3 on the sidebar, and then additionals. These guys get twice that amount, so you can field twice the amount of vehicles, and sometimes a lot more than that, depending if you're playing what sort of game you're playing. So they're a vehicle-heavy army. They're mechanised infantry, and that's really to keep my army completely different from the one the sidekick's working on, because he's going for a absolute Codex standard Imperial Guard Cadian army, sort of a traditional Cadian army, the way that they were originally designed and are now in 8th edition. So he's going full Cadian route, and I wanted something special. I've always liked the look of these figures, and I really like the Steel Legion because they're part of one of my favourite stories from Games Workshop, which is the Siege of Armageddon. Armageddon, what more do you want to know about it? It's an industrial planet. It's been invaded 3 times, although the Empire only officially says that it's been invaded twice, because it's illegal to know they were invaded the first time by demons. There was a very nasty incident after the First War of Armageddon where the Inquisition decided to kill everybody on the planet, and the Space Wolves weren't having any of that, and they ended up being a war between the Space Wolves and the Empire for about 10 years, and that went badly for the Empire. And eventually it got sorted out, and I would assume that some people are still descendant from those original troops on Armageddon. After leaving Armageddon on troop ships, which were mostly blown up, but eventually went back after the war ended. Not the incursion war, they'd already won that after the war with the Empire. But that's a whole other story which I'll go into with our Space Wolves, because that's really their thing. So I'll go through that bit of history for you in a lot more detail with the Space Wolves. Especially as Logan Grimnar was the guy actually doing it, because Space Marines are very long-lived. So the Steel Legion are wearing Chem suits. They look like trench coats, or they are trench coats, which you can see these guys wearing, and they potter around wearing these outfits because Armageddon is a horrible place to live. It's been an industrialised planet for 10,000 years or longer, and it's disgusting, and it's full of chemical wastes and stuff and chemical storms, and so the Steel Legion like to dress up nice so their skin doesn't burn off. There's one bit in one of the books where a chaplain goes out to a dropship that's crashed, and he makes it alright because there's a chaplain, but the guy going with him, he nearly burns to death in the ash wastes trying to get there. So it's really horrible, and so that's why they wear this gear, and they travel in vehicles, because it kind of makes more sense to travel in vehicles on a planet that's poisonous than it does to walk on foot. So that's a very, 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 very quick, short overview of Armageddon. The troops are in Chem gear, but given that I based them in snow, it does look like they're wearing trench coats, so they're very sort of World War II Russian sort of look to them, which I quite like. I thought that looked quite good. And it makes them completely different from the Cadians, which the sidekicks do, which is also a good thing. And I think that about finishes off the video, because I don't want to start going into detail on units, because I'll do some of the short videos I do on each individual unit and explain how I build them. So that's about it. Thank you very much for watching. Please click the like bar, because apparently that helps, and share it if you thought the video was remotely good, and leave as many comments as you like in the comment section. I will read them eventually and get back to you if there's anything worth commenting, and let me know what you think of the army so far. It is the beginning of this army. It's just the stuff I originally got with that big order that we got, and I've just finished painting them and basing them, and so there will be lots more vehicles and things to come in the future. Just look out for that. I will post videos as I get them. So thank you very much for watching. This has been Imperator Vespasian. Goodbye.